Do you know that 46% of kids that are bullied don't notify an adult? Today, we're talking about a very serious and important topic: what to do if your child is being bullied at school. Bullying occurs a lot more than people realize. You already heard me say that basically 50% of kids who experience bullying don't tell an adult. We're going to dive into that, understand why bullying happens, but most importantly, as parents, as school personnel, what can we do, right? Well, some other startling statistics is that 20% of 12 to 18-year-olds actually are bullied, and 70% of kids that identify as LGBTQ plus get verbally harassed. And there's a lot of other statistics related to bullying, but the fact of the matter is that, bullying is something that can change the trajectory of a person's life, right? Even I experienced horrific bullying more than once when I was a kid, and it was really hard, and to be honest, it's changed the way that I enter into relationships with people. Good or bad, I have a healthy bit of cautiousness. Now, I am definitely a lover of people, but it made me rethink, just who I need to be close to, right? And, when we talk about bullying, there's different kinds of bullying, and it certainly has changed with the advent of the internet, and different ways that kids bully. So, number one, we have physical bullying, and about 6% of kids in the United States report physical bullying. So, it definitely happens. I can think of a time in the last 20 years where oh my God, I had this adorable kid. He was like super ADD, learning disabled, impulsive, struggled to get along with people. Doesn't matter, but it's part of the picture. He was more vulnerable, right? That's one of the reasons why kids get bullied, is they're just more of a vulnerable population. Don't deserve it, but it happens more, right? And we should talk about it. And he was a kid that, you know, I don't wanna say complained a lot, but had a lot of needs and asked for a lot in a lot of different areas, right? So, when he started getting bullied at the playground, the teachers ignored him. It was absolutely horrible. His mom kept going in and asking for help and asking for help and asking for help, totally ignored, right? And and at the time, and still today, Connecticut has some of the toughest bullying laws, due to, a special ed student that was so horrifically bullied that he hung himself. I don't even think he was 10 years old, and so that really prompted a lot of good legislation that's very protective. And in this case, this child, he was under those laws, but still nobody did anything. And in fact, what happened is, and these were young kids, I just want you to know, these were like fifth graders. They got together in a mob, and there's something that happens in a mob. It's actually documented in sociological research. It's called groupthink. And people will do things in a group that's bad that they wouldn't do individually. So we think there's protection in numbers, but sometimes it's against us. So they got together and they actually threw him down this hill and he broke his leg. And it wasn't until then, of course, that he got to me, and we got him a different placement, and they got in a whole lot of trouble. But that kid is scarred for life, and we can't forget that. So it is the least common, right? The next type of bullying is verbal bullying, right? So, this is something that's always been around. And, what constitutes, somebody being sassy or rude versus bullying, right? So, obviously, one time is one time, still not okay. But when there's a repeated pattern of harassment, right? Any, threatening of violence, any type of harassment, that is bullying, okay? It doesn't matter what the age is. Now, one bad incident on the bus does not constitute bullying. However, a bad incident could be bullying, right? If it's, physical, if it's, sexual words, it's violent. So we can't just say that. But if somebody's just rude to you one time, let's not call the bullying card. Call that parent and be like, I think our kids have a problem. What can we do to work it out? Which isn't always received today. And I still think it should be. And we're going to talk about what you should do. Social and relational bullying is very common today. And so that's where there's a lot of exclusionary bullying, like kids are doing Snapchat and they knock a kid off at or a group text and they knock it off. So social, right? Bullying is moved more to that exclusionary, and then last is cyberbullying, right? I mean, there was a point where it was just so extreme because I don't know what people think that you can't, track everybody, but this can be horrible. Any of these can be horrible, but relationship, social, cyberbullying, and a combination of those two together can be so insidious. Things can go like wildfire, and somebody's reputation can be tarnished. People can be made fun of. You can be harassed, inappropriate photos. I mean, there's just so many things that happen today with kids. So, what do you do when you think your child is being bullied, right? First of all, you're going to talk to your kid. We're never going to blame our kid. We're never going to say, what did you do to do that? You're really impulsive. I bet you brought it on yourself. It doesn't matter. Nobody deserves to be bullied, whether they're a kid that struggles to get along socially or not. We have to build tolerance and acceptance, right? So you're going to talk to your child, really open up a space of conversation. Now, remember, 46% of kids aren't reporting it, right? And you want to look for signs, by the way. Of course, we know that only 6% or 6% are being victimized, but you do want to look for any signs, damaged items, bruises, even jumpiness, difficulties, eating or sleeping, some of those somatic complaints. You want to think about that. Is there anything going on at school, right? I think I recently shared with you all that JC, it turned out that he had like over a 2-week stomach bug. It actually, we think it was 2 stomach bugs back to back, and I was like, "Is there something going on at school?" Right? And he's like, we call it a chiacchierone in Italian. He's a gabber, and we're very emotionally connected family, and we talk about stuff all the time. And, I thought maybe something's going on, and he's now a teenager. He doesn't wanna tell me, and I even reached out to his teacher, and she was like, "There's nothing going on." Of course, it really was a bad stomach bug because I got it too. But I still had to talk to him, find out. Okay. So if you suspect bullying's going on, you want to document, and document some more. Send emails, write down incidences very specifically. It's very important to document anything that potentially could be legal. This doesn't just that's a tip in anything because we think we're going to remember. Just grab your phone, put some notes in it, and it's going to help you, and you're going to look much more or you will be much more organized, right? You want to report it to the school, right? So if bullying's occurring, it's on the bus, it's related to kids at school, you want to work with your school, right? And, that's where those emails, you want to collaborate, you want to ask, right? What are the school policies? What can be done? Get your information and really understand, if possible, just do a Google search and do a search about what your state laws are. I mentioned my state laws are very specific and some of the best ones in the country because of the poor young man who killed himself. And so when you are knowledgeable and you walk in, right? And you always want to come from a place of you all know I do the Columbo Act anytime I deal with schools. So you always want to come in and be as pleasant as possible, ask a lot of questions. You're going to be documenting, you're going to be writing them down. And you want to find out and use those buzzwords that you read in the state policy. Oh, the state policy said that after 3 incidents, it's blah, 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 blah. Can you expand upon that? Or, oh, the state policy says you have to have, a bullying liaison in your school district. Who is that? right? And really start doing that. When they know you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's, they poop it in their pants, okay? So that's important. Okay. And you want to report to the authorities. Now, this is important if it's not resolved in the school, or you're concerned that it's not being resolved fast enough, just know you don't have to wait for anything with the school. This is one of the greatest mistakes I see people make. That I think we believe in the good in people. And don't get me wrong, I do too. But when stuff like this is going down, remember apple, tree. Okay. So if you have a kid who is a bully, they could have their own problems of neurodivergence and X, Y, and Z and all that other stuff. But usually there's that same level of dysfunction with the parents. So you're not going to get the response most of the time. I mean, recently I saw a situation where um, there was actually a kid who was bullying and they didn't tell the parent. And the mother was furious that the school didn't tell her that her kid was a bully. She was like, "This is horrible. I don't know any of this. I should have gotten my kid counseling. We should have done things." And they didn't do any of that. So this was a mom who wanted to do the right thing, and I really applaud parents like that. So this is a conversation on both sides, right? But you don't have to wait for the school to report this to the police. And here's a little tidbit that school people are going to hate my guts for, even though, please, I love schools. The teachers are amazing, right? 90% of you are amazing. You know the other 10% who we can't stand, right? Is that if your school is not acting on this, they are actually or in a state of neglect, and you can report the school to Child Protective Services. And if you are not getting that response, your child is being unsafe, there is kept in unsafe, place. I mean, I always recommend when if you especially if your child's an IEP, that they're getting 24-hour supervision, right? We want to make sure the other child is getting support. And there's some murky laws on that because they can't tell you what they're doing with the other kid. But hello, if the kid is still there, then they're not in trouble, or maybe they are and they have their own IEP. There's a lot of things that can become kind of murky, but bottom line is your child deserves protection, regardless of what age it is. And there can be a lot of mixed feelings from your child because they don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be additionally bullied. And so sometimes it has to be that your child is, temporarily given home based instruction. I'm not even saying homeschooling, I'm saying home based instruction provided by the school until a plan can be worked out. Just know that's in your legal right. I've had families switch schools. Bullying is really serious, and we always have to be concerned about not just our physical worries, because gosh, things can escalate, but the emotional damage. So outside of this, you want to find out, what kind of emotional support can your school offer? What do you need to do for a therapist, right? I would get my own therapist and make sure your child is gaining coping skills, because their nervous system is going to be so dysregulated and activated, and you want to work through this as a family and support them as much as possible. So, if your child is being bullied, please get help as quickly as you can. And, remember, you don't have to wait for the school to take action. You can go to the police, and you can go to Child Protective Services if you feel that your school district is being neglectful, or the bus driver is being neglectful. Oh gosh, how horrible is that? Poor bus drivers driving 80 kids with their backs to they're back to 80 kids. Stuff's going to go down. But this is an important conversation. And if you're looking for more support, you can always go to our solution matcher, drroseanne.com/help, and get support for your child and your family.